I hope the examples convinced you that we need a sophisticated management of supply chains. So, as I told you, you will have a full course on supply chain management. So we here just dive into a definition of supply chain management to get it more precise, that you have a first understanding. Let's have a look at this division. The goal of supply chain management is to increase the competitiveness of the supply chain, and in the context of supply chains we achieve this by a better integration and a better coordination of our different flows. And based on our previous discussion, we can now define supply chain management in the following way. Supply chain management is the task of integrating organizational units along a supply chain and coordinating material, information and financial flows to fulfill the ultimate customer's demands with the aim of improving competitiveness of a supply chain as a whole. When we improve the competitiveness of a supply chain as a whole, it does not automatically mean that the position of each company that is part of an organizational of a supply chain is improved in the short term. Yeah? We try to look at the whole supply chain, and this might, at least in the short run, result in negative effects for individual companies that are part of the supply chain. We are not only looking at companies, we are writing here organizational units, which is a little bit more general than just a company. Organizational units can also include non-profit organizations or government organizations, for example. And the supply chain is looking at the ultimate customer's demands, and they want to improve the competitiveness of the supply chain as a whole. Where you see good examples of supply chains and how they compete with each other is in the automotive industry. The supply chain of Mercedes-Benz consists of many suppliers all around the world, and of course Mercedes-Benz as a big company has a strong impact on their suppliers, but in the end the suppliers are still independent companies. Though there needs to be an incentive to join such a supply chain. Mercedes-Benz cannot just force these independent companies to follow their production wishes. And although what is true in the automotive industry is that the supplier of Mercedes-Benz might be at the same time a supplier to Porsche or Audi or Lexus, for example. Though these suppliers are not only limited to a single brand, they usually supply their products to different brands. So the different supply chains following different brands are somewhat in competition all the time, and all the incentives, all the effort to increase the production efficiency and effectiveness look at the final customer, to fulfill the final customer's demand. If you're not interested in buying a Mercedes, the whole supply chain will collapse. Now let's have a short overview of the house of supply chain management. This little house, this little drawing is called the house of supply chain management, and in this little drawing the building blocks of the supply chain and of the management of the supply chain are highlighted in a nice way. The overall goal is to increase the competitiveness of a supply chain. Usually we achieve this by improving the customer service, and now there are two ways how to improve competitiveness and customer service. On the one hand, by a better integration. Integration involves choice of our partners, the choice of our suppliers, how we manage our network organization, how we collaborate, how we work together with these partners, and on leadership. Leadership, of course, you need leadership inside a company, but you also need leadership for a whole supply chain, and it might be different because we are talking to legally independent companies. On the other hand, we try to achieve a better competitiveness and customer service by a better coordination of the activities. We try to achieve this better coordination by using more and more comprehensive information, sharing this through our information system. We have a clear process orientation. As you know from the basics in production, we talked about this process orientation, and we make use of advanced planning techniques. Advanced planning techniques include using of simulation models to understand the problems and optimization models to make decisions. And all this is based on the foundations of core logistics activities, transport, warehousing, for example, marketing activities, operations research, in particular the advanced planning. It's based on operations research. Operations research is applied mathematics to come up with more or less automated decision making or decision support systems. The basics of operations research are also taught to you in our decision theory course, and in semester number 3 you have a course on operations research. In semester number 6 you can choose an elective on operations research, and operations research is, for this discussion that we are having here, also a prerequisite for the supply chain management course, so pay attention in this course. Of course, organizational theory goes into supply chain management. Our purchasing and supply decisions go into supply chain management. We also have a course on procurement. So you see how all these courses in your logistics program at GeoTech are supporting the goal of a better supply chain management. And this is not only left to a single course, but to improve supply chain management is based on several decisions, knowledge in different areas, skills in different areas that all work together, like this network of activities. Now let's go to the real world and have a look at some real world cases. I decided to support these real world cases with some newspaper articles from the Financial Times, where they discuss some issues in global supply chains that happened in the recent weeks. You find these 3 articles that I uploaded to Moodle. The first one is about the new Suez crisis, a global economy cracking under the strain. This happened when the Suez Canal was blocked by a big container ship, and this crucial transportation route was blocked. You see how a transportation problem affected the supply chains of many companies all around the world. And then we have 2 other articles that are related to a chip crisis. Some computer chips cannot be produced at the moment at the rate or the demand implies. So this has an impact on many different industries, and this is a clear global supply chain issue. So I would like you to read these articles. I'm sure you already read them, and then we will have some questions. I will open some questions on Moodle so that you can check your understanding of the articles. And it's really important that you try to read and understand the article yourself. This also checks your ability in reading and understanding more complex business communication. So it's also a practice in communication. And try to avoid just copy pasting the article to some translator and translate it in Arabic when you're doing this and when you have to do this to understand the articles, then actually it means your level of English is not yet on the level it should be. And probably this will also not really help you in learning and understanding, so try to go through the article yourself and try to understand the article yourself. And I will open some self-study questions where you can make a checkup in what you understood from selected articles. Okay. So now let's sum up. We introduced the concept of supply chains. We have external suppliers. We introduced the several tiers of suppliers. We have external customers, and we have internal procedures that all play together in defining what a supply chain is. We introduced definitions for a supply chain and for the management of supply chains. You learned from the House of Supply Chain Management in our discussion about supply chains that the main building blocks are integration and coordination, and you're familiar with some real-world examples, some real-world case studies that show you how important the management of supply chains is for our modern economy.